Okay.
Okay, so now we're moving on to our third speaker. And to be honest with you, I know her husband better than I know her, but I know she lives in Wilmette. I know she lives right down the street. And I am very excited to hear the story of Kirsten Guill. Right. Give it up.
Okay, Wilmette, hello. How's everybody feeling? All right. Good. Okay, so my name is Kirsten, and I'm going to tell you all about the first time that I got engaged, which was not to my husband, that George knows. The first time that I got engaged was on an international flight to a stranger that I met on the plane because we both wanted more booze. This is a true story. So, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Well, before I quit drinking a few years ago, this kind of crazy thing used to happen to me all the time. So it was not that abnormal for me to have some sort of wacky story happening. So I'll take you back 20 years ago. The year was unfortunately not 1948. It was the year 2000. And I was getting on this plane home from Amsterdam. Started chit-chatting with the gentleman who was getting on the plane with me. And turns out we were seatmates. So we wound up having this whole entire conversation. We were going through all the normal things that you might talk about when you're on a plane with somebody for like 6 hours. So I found out, that his name was Marshall. He was 33 years old, and he was coming home from Amsterdam where he'd been on a work trip. My name was Kirsten. I was 20. I was coming home from a term abroad during college, and I was excited to be meeting my dad and my brother at the airport when we landed a few hours later in JFK. We were going to go home to our house in New Jersey, and I was pumped because I hadn't seen them in a long time. So the drinks were flowing. We were having a great time on the plane. Every single time the flight attendant came by, we were like, 2 more wines, those little bottles of like Sutter Home or whatever they serve on the planes, right? They're pretty gross, but we drank a lot of them. So we were like, 2 more wines, 2 more wines, 2 more wines. And so I started asking him, hey, what was your work trip about? And again, it's the year 2000, so like reality TV was not a thing. And he's explaining to me that he was a writer for the New York Times Magazine, and he was doing a story on this thing called reality TV, where there was a house full of people in Amsterdam just living there, and then they were going to film them, and there was no plot, right? But whatever these people did was just going to go on television, like no editing, right? And I'm like, that sounds like the most terrible idea ever. It's never going to work in the United States, which, obviously I was wrong. But I was having a great time with this guy, and I'm like, oh man, this is so fun. And so, one thing led to another, and it was terrific until the flight attendant comes up to us, and she's like, we're going to be suspending beverage service for the remainder of the flight, right? Like, bum, bum, bum. I was like, this is horrible. We cannot not have any more booze on this plane. Like, I am having the best time. This guy is so fun. I certainly was having fun. I don't know about Marshall, but, I was having the best time. So I'm like, this cannot end. I'm like, Marshall, what are we going to do? He's like, nothing. They said there's no more booze. And I'm like, no, we have to do something. Like, there must be something we can do, Marshall. And he's like, Kirsten, they said there's no more booze. And I was like, let me think. Okay, Marshall, I have it. If you propose to me, like on this plane right now, there's no way they're going to be able to cut us off, right? We're going to have to be able to celebrate. It's going to be awesome. Like, there's no way. They got to bring us more booze if we get engaged. This is the answer. And he's like, I don't even have a ring. This is the craziest idea. And I was like, oh, no, I can solve this, right? So I had a little silver ring. I take it off. I'm in college. I'm like, take this. Go up there. Come back. Ask me to marry you. It's going to be solved. So he's like, all right, I'm game, I'm in, right? So he goes up to the front of the plane, like behind the little curtains. He's telling all the flight attendants, like, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm gonna propose to my girlfriend. I really hope she says yes, right? And I'm sitting there in the second row with my book. I'm like trying to pretend like I don't know what's going on up there. I'm just sitting here reading my book all innocently, right? And so then the next thing you know, the curtains part, Marshall comes up. We were sitting in like the second row. So he gets down on one knee, and he starts going through his whole spiel, right? Like, Kirsten, I've loved you since the moment I laid eyes on you. And I'm like, that was like 4 hours ago, but okay. And he goes, I really hope, and I'm thinking to myself, like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to kiss this guy, right? Like, halfway through his proposal, I'm like, there's no way anyone's gonna believe that we're engaged, and they're not gonna give me any more booze if I don't kiss him. Like, this is not believable. So I'm like, oh shit, all right, well, I have no sexual interest in Marshall, but whatever, I'm gonna go for it, right? So he says, Kirsten, would you do me the great honor of being my wife? So I like explode out of my chair, like, yes, Marshall, I will marry you. And I throw my arms around him and I kiss him, and everyone's congratulating us. The pilot gets on over the loudspeaker, wishes Marshall and Kirsten many years of happiness. us on their engagement. That's just happened on the plane. And all these people are congratulating us and high-fiving us. And it totally worked, by the way. The flight attendants, the curtains reopened. There's bottles of champagne. There's more of those little red wine bottles, right? And then they had a card signed by like the entire flight crew of KLM Flight 275. So I'm like, this is fucking awesome, right? I'm like, this is like the best thing ever. So we were having a terrific time. We only signed one customs form because now we're a family, right? So we get off the plane, like holding hands, like la la la, newlyweds, Marshall and Kirsten, here we go. So everything's going awesome in my drunken state until I realize, like, oh shit, we're getting to baggage claim. My brother and my dad are in the baggage claim, right? I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, well, I can't let the ruse down now. All these people think I just got engaged, right? So I'm like, okay. So I introduce Dad. Here's Marshall, my 33-year-old New York Times Magazine writer fiancé, right? Here you go. Dad, meet Marshall. We're getting married. I swear, like, my dad did not know whether to, like, punch this guy in the face or give him a hug. He's like, what do I do here? So I think he gave him a handshake. It was like the most awkward 15 minutes of my life. We were like chit-chatting, talking about our wedding, how do we meet, all this stuff we just made up on the spot. Finally, all these people leave, right? So we're able to drop this ruse and tell my dad, like, it's just a joke. He's like, oh, thank God. My 17-year-old brother is like, I can do whatever I want, right? Like, she is so in trouble for this. But so, we never saw each other again, Marshall and I. Like 10 years ago, 10 years after that, Facebook became a thing. So he found me on Facebook. We've been Facebook friends ever to this day. But that was pretty much the end of that engagement. And my husband, who George knows, whose name is Dan, I was super grateful that he asked me to marry him. He had heard that story. And he knew Marshall was still my Facebook friend, like weird. But he asked me to marry him anyway. And I knew that I had to seal the deal with Dan when I found out on our second or third date that Dan's actual middle name is, in fact, Marshall. So that's my story. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
To a little intermission. So as George mentioned when we first kicked this off tonight, that the Wilmette Theater is a non-for-profit. Therefore, we depend on you to help keep us going. Does it sound PBS enough? Is that good? Was that right? So feel free to take a little break, stretch a little bit, go over to the bar. I might meet you there. Use the restrooms. We have 4 of them now. So yeah, take a little break. We'll be back in a few.
Can I just add? If she wasn't clear enough, booze is very profitable for nonprofits. So please help yourselves. And also, it also helps with getting the courage to come up here and telling a little story. So please, let's give it up for Kirsten again and the 2 others, John and Lynn. And we will see you in 5 to 10 minutes, please.